Death finally began to act. When she noticed that one of Martin's subordinates had actually begun to take control of the entire world tree rule, she finally stopped being patient. Oh, it's really interesting. I have the opportunity to step into the level single universe, but I don't care. Can I even give generously to my subordinates? Death laughed in a low voice, and at the same time, the sense of crisis in his heart became stronger. Because only people with absolute self-confidence can exaggerate to this level, and even the opportunity to become a noble cosmic god is given to others. This means that Martin has a stronger whole card, a more supreme self-confidence and vision. Death felt that he couldn't wait any longer. Martin's growth rate is too terrifying, so terrifying that she, who is so knowledgeable, has seen countless monsters in countless universes with her own eyes, and she has a vague sense of anxiety. In the multi-universe, the most indispensable thing is the rapid rise of the gods, but the origins of those gods are clear, and their powerful methods can also be seen in obvious clues. You alone make me unable to see through from beginning to end. Strange power, unknown system, 25 unheard of but extremely powerful artifact. Death looked at the direction of the world tree. In her field of vision, an illusory tree was standing on one side of the universe, swaying its branches, holding up one world after another. Decided. Eternal appeared beside Death. Death said indifferently, "It's decided, I will cut off this guy's destiny." For millions of years, for other lives, the growth is extremely limited, but it will be easy to get lost in the success of what he wants, but Martin does not. Similarly, he has his own will, has his own system and goals. Destiny is basically a tool for him, but it is optional. For millions of years, I don't dare to bet, it would be better to take advantage of him not to grow up. Interrupt him decisively. Eternal. The whole person is hidden in the endless shadows, at the moment slowly said. I hope you will succeed, because if you fail, you will definitely be retaliated by that guy, and simple things will become very troublesome. Death's eyes flickered. Don't worry, I won't fail. I am the death of this universe. Can Martin still kill Death? Eternal stared at her for a while, his eyes were somewhat meaningful, and he slowly withdrew. Only Death himself is left, standing alone in the starry sky of the universe, staring at the endless stars for a long time. Finally, Death moved, and she slowly raised her hand, stretched out the boneless fingers, and tapped towards the front. In a flash, countless ghosts appeared, and she was throwing at her obsessively. The invisible barrier blocked it. These are the souls of dead lives in this universe, and the ultimate destination of all decedent is her death. If we say that there must be an existence in this universe that can interrupt the destiny, it must be you, Thanos. I deliberately paid attention to it and let it go. Thanos. At this moment, a terrible smile appeared on the face of the death skeleton. Thanos. Thanos in this universe is a special one, because he has not been manipulated by her. Look at Thanos in other universes, one by one, they were all made crazy and neurotic by her playing, one by one can lick each other, desperately pleased her. There is only Thanos in this universe, she is just observing coldly. It is rare to be generous, giving him more free development space, and the result is really a surprise to her. Thanos, you are the most like a normal person. Of all Thanos I have seen. Death's smile is weird. The other Thanos, definitely are dogs. Death dragged countless souls from the Deathlaw's destination. In the end, he directly touched Thanos who had been sleeping for a long time. With a finger movement, Thanos' soul penetrated the Deathlaw directly and was directly pulled out by her. Another peculiar rule burst out. Thanos' illusory soul gradually solidified, and finally, resurrected, slowly opened his eyes. There was a long silence. It seems that I failed. I was completely defeated. Thanos' gaze fell on Death, with the same indifference as before. It's just that a loser like me can actually alarm the gods of death. Death made a weird giggle, but the answer to her was still Thanos' cold and wary face. If this were replaced by other Thanos, he would have rushed over and licked her like a dog. Thanos, you are the son of destiny in this universe. You used to be, you are now, and so will the future. Even if you die, destiny will be on your side. Death covered his mouth and chuckled. With the resurrection of Thanos, the top god of the universe has keenly noticed that the destiny is clearly trembling, and there is a strange centripetal force faintly. It seems that Thanos should be the center of the destiny. Sure enough. Should it be said that he is indeed the son chosen and cultivated by the pan-consciousness of this universe? Even if Martin's destiny was taken away by Martin's brutal means, he would instinctively favor the Thanos that he selected and cultivated. I lost to Martin. There is nothing to say. I am not his opponent. No matter what you want to achieve with me, you will be disappointed. Thanos sighed and sat on a rock wearily, staring blankly. Die. Thanos, before you give up, you, as the destiny of the universe, will have a more glorious future. Death smiled in a low voice. Slowly, a peculiar weapon pulled out from an unknown corner of the universe. This is a long sword that exudes powerful power. This sword. Thanos' eyes condensed and his face moved. He clearly felt the breath of infinite gems from this long sword. Infinite gems, infinity gauntlet, and this infinite long sword, the infinite three-piece set, can truly maximize the infinite power, but unfortunately, everyone only stares at the infinite gems and can exert the power of the infinite gems. Infinity gauntlet. Death threw the infinite long sword in front of Thanos. It was just the simplest move. A terrifying wave erupted from the long sword and quickly spread to the entire universe. Now, Thanos, you are the real destiny. You, who used infinity gauntlet and infinite gems to achieve the goal of destroying half of the universe's population, are now favored by the infinite sword, which will give you amazing power. Death said. Thanos walked towards this long sword step by step, his eyes fixed on him. He felt an impatient roar call on the sword. Huge amounts of grasping the hilt of the sword with the palm of his hand, lifting it slightly, and in an instant, many nearby fixed star systems burst open on the spot. Infinite long sword. Thanos' face was shaking, and on that moving face, there was once again a raging fire burning, a deadly ideal, and it was boiling again at this moment. Go, Thanos, take it, go to realize your ideals, kill the biggest obstacle in front of you, cut off the opponent's head, and trample it under your feet. The sound of death contained magical powers, bewildering Thanos constantly. I will do it, not for you, but for my ideals, for the future of this universe, I will do it. Thanos took a deep look at death. He didn't know what was going on between this existence and Martin, and he didn't want to know what the other party wanted to achieve with him. He only knows that his ideas need to be implemented. Just like Death said. Find Martin, kill Martin, and chop off his head with this invincible sword of infinity. Infinite sword. The strongest sword in Marvel's history, surpassing the sword in the stone, the sword of the dead, and the sword of Twilight. In the comics, Doctor Doom intends to use this sword to conquer the universe, but is defeated by the opened Iron Man. A fragment dropped from the infinite sword can feed the hungry Galactus and transform it into the form of Life Messenger. The final outcome of this sword is to be destroyed along with Infinity Gauntlet and infinite gems. It is the least and most mysterious weapon in the infinite three-piece suit. Infinite gems are mounted on the Infinity Gauntlet, and then wearing the Infinity Gauntlet to hold the infinite sword. This is a combination that maximizes the power of infinity. But now, this weapon has fallen into Thanos' hands. In order to improve Thanos' combat power, so as to kill him as soon as possible, Martin took the fate of his life, and death was also the blood. He took the infinite sword directly and handed it to Thanos with reluctance. Thanos wears an infinity gauntlet, holding an infinite sword in his hand, and leaves. Death looked at Thanos' back. The smile on the skull's face, at the moment, was even more hideous and distorted. Thanos, it's rare for me to not twist your heart. It is already a great gift to you. Now I have given you the treasure of the infinite sword. If you still can't kill Martin, or even your destiny, I haven't been able to take it back. Believe me, what's waiting for you at that time will be more terrible than death. In order to kill Martin, death was really a great effort, with a kind of sincerity with all his heart. Who makes Martin too weird and has destiny to add him? Let the real destiny go to death and false destiny. Nothing is more beautiful than this. Cybertron. Martin is grinding a new coffee patiently. This is a variant coffee he cultivated using the latest technology. Now it has finally matured, he personally grinds it and intends to taste it carefully. This fluctuation. Suddenly, Martin stopped the movement in his hand and slowly raised his head. His gaze surpassed Cybertron's star and looked into the depths of the universe. In the instant just now, there was an extremely strange fluctuation. Although it was not terribly devastating, if you feel it carefully, it clearly has an internal quality that Martin cares about. This wave of volatility is somewhat similar to infinite gems. What the hell is there a brand new infinite gems born? Martin became serious immediately, not even paying attention to the process of making his favorite coffee. No one knows better than him what it means if a new infinite gems is born. 6 ordinary infinite gems are worthless, and they are waste when they are taken to other universes, not to mention that these 6 gems are now broken, and even 1,000th of their power can't be exerted. However, if it is a new infinite gems, it must be exhausting the entire multi-universe. There is only one special infinite gems. No matter what it is, since it can be related to infinite gems, I have to decide. I will kill whoever blocks it. Martin got up, picked up a towel casually, and wiped his hands carefully. At this time, 2 tall figures entered the room. Creator, my infinite gems are restless. Megatron's face was serious. The many fragments all over his body, at the moment, were shining, and the unique vibration frequency at the moment also kept emitting, extending into the depths of the universe. Megatron snorted coldly and forcibly suppressed the restlessness of infinite gems. Optimus Prime was also very serious, and said solemnly, could it be that the rules of this universe have changed, which triggered the reaction of infinite gems? Martin faintly said, the infinite power that can trigger the infinite gems reaction, the exhaustion of multi-universe, there are only a few. This kind of thing is no longer the kind of thing that you 2-level godfathers can intervene. You just need to stay quietly in the block. Botan is just fine. Protect this planet for me. Remember, no matter what happens, Dona T leaves Cybertron, so as not to be exploited by the enemy. Wow. After Martin put on his jacket, in a crash, the Supreme God armor was instantly worn. As he slowly raised his head, the powerful computing system of the God armor was activated, and all the blessings were applied to Martin. Megatron and Optimus Prime's eyes condensed. What kind of things can make Martin, who is so strong and calm, wear the Supreme God armor in advance as a precaution? At this time, the harsh alarm sounded. In Cybertron's outer space, one spacecraft appeared one after another, and the most eye-catching thing was the one that looked like a continental version of the giant spacecraft. Holy Place Number 2, the flagship of the Dark Quadrant. The Dark Quadrant is coming. Ultron issued a warning. Dark Quadrant. Thanos are dead. Only a few level sub-godfather scum is living. How dare they come? A bloodthirsty smile appeared on Megatron's face, and there was even an offended anger. Even if Thanos comes, he who has already reached the limit of level godfather can still be killed with one hand. No, be careful, something is not quite right. Optimus Prime had already pulled out the great sword. Martin stepped out even more, and in the next second he was already in the universe, standing directly in front of Holy Place 2. This guy seems to have become stronger. It's no wonder that even the top cosmic god like Death fears him so much. Thanos sat on the throne, wearing heavy armor. The long sword that exudes a frightening atmosphere, at the moment was stuck on the floor in front of him. Ebony Maw said sincerely, "A diaresis, my master, although you hold the hope of this universe and many cosmic gods, your faithful servant urges you not to take risks. Needless to say, I am bound to fight this battle with him to fight for the fate of this universe. The world and the gods are on my side. This time, I will lose without any reason." Thanos looked indifferent, got up, and grabbed this long sword in one hand. Its powerful energy fluctuations made the level sub-godfather's Obsidian 5 generals inevitably step back, looking at each other, and greedy eyes fell on this one. On a peculiar weapon. General Corvus Glaive even coveted, "My master, what weapon is this?" Thanos glanced at General Corvus Glaive indifferently, and stared at him. After he died, he took charge of the Dark Quadrant bloody, but after he returned, he gave up his position without hesitation. He snorted coldly. "This is the most powerful in the world. The weapon is enough to sever the armor on Martin's body." While talking, Thanos had already walked out of Holy Place 2 and confronted Martin in the space. "It's really you, Thanos. Is it? I guess it's the Death Watch that can't help it. Decided to resurrect you to be her instrumentalist?" The moment he saw Thanos, Martin smiled. His smile was very playful. Even the gods sometimes have to do mortal things, picking up the things thrown in the trash can and continuing to use them. I don't care about her conspiracy, I just need to know that my ideal is not dead yet, and this universe needs me to save. Martin, this time you will die in my hands. When you die, I will be in the depths of the universe. Pick a peaceful planet and build a tomb for you by yourself. Thanos waved his hand, and the army behind him directly rushed towards Cybertron. He himself grasped the hilt with one hand and wiped the blade of the long sword with the other. He looked at Martin's gaze, already with a kind of coldness. Murderous. This time, he will never lose. It is impossible to lose. He has the most powerful sword in the world. The leaders of the two sides are facing each other. But the armies of the two sides have begun to exchange fire. At the moment, the Dark Quadrant, the whole army was dispatched and crashed into Cybertron. The countless warships swarming there, and the many black obelisks dropped from the warships, at the moment crashed into Cybertron. Tiantian. They will be submerged in the wave of my vanguard. General Corvus Glaive looked at the planet below with a gloomy expression in a very bad mood. Still angry about Thanos? Proxima Midnight chuckled in a low voice. General Corvus Glaive snorted, clutching his weapon tightly, and said coldly, he should have died. He was killed by Martin while Warmier, and even the soul gem was taken away. He has already seized control of the Dark Quadrant and has become the Lord of Darkness in a generation. Resultae the bastard Thanos was resurrected by the Universe God, and then he ran back? General Corvus Glaive and Thanos both had their desperate thoughts, and they were really about to move, but when they saw the infinite sword in Thanos' hand, they were shocked. This time, the Master won't lose. Ebony Maw looked at the countless troops outside, with a strange luster flowing in his eyes, and said in a low voice. Obsidian Fifth Generals fell silent. They had personally experienced the terrifying infinite sword. They knew too well how strong the current Mirage 400 was. That was the Overlord who really added the destiny and had a terrifying artifact. At the moment, countless black obelisks fell, and they were about to hit the surface of Cybertron. Numerous pioneers inside the obelisk, at the moment, had already begun to scream one after another, and couldn't wait to carry out a new killing. Can be the next moment. A protective shield covering the whole world suddenly appeared, surging with powerful energy fluctuations, blocking countless obelisks in a sudden, and there was a loud noise, and those obelisks exploded in the atmosphere. This Isa-A, the protective cover that covers the world, is really generous. Obsidian Fifth looked cold. I originally thought that at most a fleet would be sent to bombard and block, but I didn't expect to have such a luxurious energy shield. In the next moment, countless fleets and formations of shapeshifting King Kong in the form of squads began to swarm out, crossing the shield in the Roar's whistle, and fighting the Dark Quadrant army in space. Let's take action too. The life forms of these robots are very suitable for combat. In space, each of them can become a combat unit, but our soldiers cannot. Supergiant spoke indifferently, grabbed a long white waist-length hair, and stepped step by step, standing directly in the space, looking at the fierce confrontation that had already erupted ahead, suddenly sneered. Indeed, these creatures named shape-shifting King Kong are so superior in life form that they can survive and fight in any harsh environment. The Obsidian Five sneered and flew out of the spaceship, looking at Cybertron indifferently. How long has this passed before the five of us joined forces again? Ebony Maw chuckled softly. As long as there is no problem with the Master, Cybertron can never be our opponent. General Corvus Glaive sneered again and again. During this period, although they are deliberately avoiding Cybertron, their impression of this planet still remains in the past. 5-level sub-god fathers are enough to destroy this special planet. I'll do it first. Supergiant showed a faint smile, his pupils widened, and in an instant, the huge spiritual power burst out, and it was about to sweep the audience. Her mental ability is extremely terrifying on a large-scale battlefield, enough to clear the field in an instant. But the next moment, the dim yellow light flashed suddenly. Hey, how can someone block my mind ability? And this power? Supergiant's face changed, and when he looked up, he saw a big man with a dark silver body. At the moment he was killing him with a sneer on his face. What made her feel even more shocked was that there were clearly shards of gems on the big man's body. sparkling. No, this is infinite gems. This guy actually managed the broken infinite gems. Supergiant's face changed in an instant, his already white face, at the moment was even paler. Die. Megatron grinned, and his eyes fell on Supergiant. Suddenly, the yellow light dimmed, and the absolute power of purple emerged. Even at a long distance, Megatron blasted out with a punch, and Level Godfather's powerful combat power broke out. Come out. Punch. Just a punch. Supergiant felt the terrifying pressure. The purple light that came in flashed with an unstoppable sense of oppression. Before she had time to scream for help, she only heard a loud noise and purple light spreading. Supergiant was hit by Megatron. Supergiant? Hateful. Why did this guy suddenly become so strong? The faces of the other 4 generals changed wildly, with a look of panic. How could it happen that Megatron is not even a level sub-godfather, but now he has mastered the infinite gems fragments and killed Supergiant with one punch? General Corvus Glaive's eyes flickered, and his face was decisive. Everyone, I suddenly remembered something. Roar. A Bifrost descended suddenly. Before the light dissipated, a giant sword had already crashed down, and General Corvus Glaive was slashed on the spot in an instant. Optimus Prime scanned coldly, looking at the sickle weapon floating in space, and without hesitation, he cut it down again with a sword. Amidst the shattering of the sickle, a scream was made vaguely. The body of General Corvus Glaive is this sickle. Roar. Before the remaining 3 generals could react, a terrifying roar that shook the 9 realms was already emitted, and a terrifying dragon, at the moment roar, rushed out and rushed straight to the battlefield. A horrible flame, with negative divine power, submerged Black Dwarf and burned to ashes in an instant. Damn, are these guys monsters? Ebony Maw's face was blue, and he chanted a spell. In an instant, the others had disappeared. The only remaining Proxima Midnight, at the moment was also torn to pieces by 5 madly rushing monsters, and in the end it was just a scream. Huh, it's boring. Megatron was disappointed. The Dark Quadrant army that is pouring out of nests, is this level? That's it? That's it. It's not enough to kill it all, and it's not fun at all. The terrifying combat power displayed by Cybertron's army is now only a small part of the display, and it instantly wiped out the upper levels of the Dark Quadrant. On the battlefield, the opponent Lin Chan retreated even more. The strength displayed was enough to shock countless civilizations. The explosion of fireworks in the universe heralded the end of the Dark Quadrant that has run across the universe for thousands of years. With the remains of the old Overlord, the rise of a new Overlord has been established. Your power is being destroyed, Thanos. Martin glanced at the battle and said lightly. Thanos was expressionless, and slowly raised the infinite sword in his hand, with an indifferent expression. I don't care, the Dark Quadrant is just my tool to save the world. Now, I have the most powerful weapon, enough to power the infinite power. An infinite sword zoomed into the extreme. Martin, you are lost. Martin stared at Thanos for a while, then suddenly smiled. You said, the infinite sword is the strongest weapon? Martin's gaze moved, and finally fell on the strange long sword in Thanos' hand. If it was just a guess, but when he saw Thanos resurrected, he immediately understood. Infinite long sword, Marvel's first sword, one of the complete infinite 3-piece set. Originally, this thing was too rare. Martin didn't think about getting this thing from the beginning, but he didn't expect it. Now it's actually resurrected. Thanos' hands. Hey. Did death give Thanos a hand in hand? The infinite sword, a rare weapon in the world, can be used with infinity gauntlet and infinite gems to maximize infinite power. Thanos, you are really amazing, you can get this weapon. Martin smiled suddenly, with a weirdness in his smile. Thanos stared. Martin's reaction was beyond his expectation, and he suddenly said in a deep voice, why are you so clear about the origin of this weapon? There is no reason, I just know, I know better. Thanos, you have been used by death, and you are one of her dogs. Martin laughed softly. Thanos looked cold and silent for a while, and said, I am not a dog of any man or god. Even if she is a god, I will always only follow the ideals in my heart. So, from now on, your ideal will be shattered, and I will cut it off with my own hands. I can kill you once, I can kill countless times, Even if the universe god is standing behind you is useless, because even the universe god, give in front of me. Martin slowly raised his hand and sneered. You said, the infinite sword is the strongest weapon? Do you think that with the infinite long sword, you are sure to defeat me without infinite gems? The infinite sword is indeed powerful, but Thanos, it is not as invincible as you think. A terrible fluctuation suddenly erupted from Cybertron. The strange blue ripples spread, triggering huge amounts of ripples in the space for countless hours, as if the entire universe had to give in front of this unknown source of power. Thanos frowned, and a trace of anxiety suddenly rose in his heart. It stands to reason that his will has been built to an extremely powerful level, but Martin is really weird, and there are always endless methods every time. Boom. A stream of light flew up abruptly amid a dreadful bang, and flew straight to Martin. At this moment, the entire universe trembled, as if it could not bear the simple movement of this unknown object, as if it had been severely cut. Not good. Thanos's face sank, feeling the horrible tearing sensation on his face. His heart was throbbing, and he did not dare to hesitate. With a low cry, he rushed towards Martin with the infinite sword, and cut it down with a fierce sword. No matter what the hell it is, Martin can never get it smoothly. You are in fear, Thanos, fear is dead in my hands again. Martin's voice turned into a faint whisper, hiss. On the cut infinite long sword, there was a powerful burst of infinite power, and in conjunction with Thanos' golden infinity gauntlet, it did produce a geometrically multiplied power surge. However, in the face of this sudden cut, Martin's face was flat. At the moment, he backed away abruptly, and he was about to be slashed by the edge of the infinite sword. A blue streamer pierced through it in an instant. The endless overlapping time and space, at the moment, was pierced by the blue streamer, but for a moment, a bizarre and wide sword made of blue crystal was has appeared in Martin's hands. When Martin raised his long sword with a flat face, only to hear a loud noise that resounded throughout the universe. In an instant, two terrifying long swords had collided, and two completely different powerful energy positions and their own characteristics broke out in a terrifying collision. This horror wave erupted from just one sword. Madness spread out in all directions, setting off an energy storm that affected countless galaxies. Behind him, on Cybertron, the magic ball had already begun to shelter Cybertron for the first time. It was more than enough to protect a planet with the power of the 10 great artifacts, and immediately stopped this terrible storm. What is this? Thanos looked at the blue crystal sword with a shocked face, brewing endless sharp blue light. At the moment, his purple face was reflected hideously. His face was even more unbelievable, and his palms suddenly clenched, grabbing the infinity-long sword with infinity gauntlet, and with a low growl, he exploded with even greater infinite power, trying to give this unknown long sword in one fell swoop. Cut it off. But no matter how much power he exerts, it is of no use, as if what he was cutting down was originally as indestructible as this universe. How is this possible? Thanos's face changed. For me, nothing is impossible, Martin said lightly. The next second, he kicked out and kicked Thanos hard in the stomach. This was enough to break the planet with one blow, and he kicked Thanos out in this empty space. Suddenly fly out in space for a long time. A mouthful of red blood spurted out, and was quickly frozen by the low temperature of the universe. What makes Thanos' heartache more than his physical injury is the weird weapon in Martin's hand. Thanos, I told you early in the morning, you were deceived by the insidious guy who died. Don't think she is a god. It's only because she's alive long enough. She's lucky enough to take advantage of the loopholes to become a god. Death is essentially an idiot. You don't even understand this? Martin grabbed the long sword and walked towards Thanos step by step. His movements were not rushed or slow, and he was more relaxed and casual, as if even the Thanos holding an infinite long sword was still not worth his all-out effort. To be honest, sometimes, when Martin looks at the gods, he really does not hide his disdain and contempt for these gods like idiots. These guys were born early, and they had occupied all the gods early, because they were honored by countless later beings as gods. But actually, that's it. There is really nothing to be awe-inspiring. What is this sword? Why do you have this level of weapon? Thanos' voice was low, revealing a deep unwillingness. Martin slashed with a sword again. the sharp enough to cut everything. Even the adjacent space was torn apart, huge amounts of nothingness emerged, and the blow that pierced the time and space immediately slashed towards Thanos. Thanos let out a low growl, holding the infinite sword in both hands, and slashed fiercely, but the next moment, his whole person was slashed out, and the infinite sword let out a painful cry. Martin stands tall in the universe, and the beautiful azure luster surrounds him. This sword is a sword that can slaughter gods. It's called the Star Sword. The Star Sword shone with a terrifying blue luster, dipping countless planets into bright colors. Die, Thanos, even if you have the infinite sword, it is impossible to get back what should belong to you. Martin sneered, and slowly shook the Star Sword. This terrifying long sword only flickered in space, cutting the space and time nearby. It seemed that no matter what was facing the Star Sword, it had to face it. Destiny to be shredded. Thanos's face was completely gloomy at the moment, and with a low roar, the whole person rushed over like a meteor, and set off huge amounts of roar. The infinite sword that was raised high. At the moment, there was a burst of infinite power. Come out. The point of the sword pointed directly at Martin's head. He will not retire, nor will he retire. When death resurrected him and gave him the treasure of the infinite sword, Thanos knew deeply that he had no retreat. Retreat, not to mention that he would not let him go. Even the gods of the universe won't let him go. When the two long swords brewing terrifying power collided again, bursting out terrifying ripples, and their all-encompassing sharpness spread one after another, and began to chop everything near, so a cold light burst out here. After traveling through the endless universe for a long time, he defeated countless fixed stars and planets along the way, and then slowly dissipated. It symbolizes the confrontation between the two world's strongest swords. At this moment, with Martin and Thanos full shots, they finally came to a peak of twists and turns, and the terrible impact it caused began to spread to the entire universe. Rumble. Hiss. The crackling sound and the broken sound are produced one after another. The two figures use the entire universe as the battlefield. Each sword slashes the past, and every seemingly random movement of the figure. There are countless galaxies that are crossed by the two of them. In front of these two existences, the entire universe seemed like its own pool of water, with countless sword lights shining, and two completely different power systems. At the moment, the most fierce and brutal confrontation began to maximize. Many eyes were attracted, and more angry roars resounded. Damn. Our Carry Empire has been destroyed by dozens of planets again. These bastards, can't they stop? Gods. We Carry people can also have powerful gods that can kill these guys. Prepare for war. The glory of the Skrull Empire cannot be tarnished. Don't let those primitive and ignorant Carry monkeys take advantage of the loopholes. The Xia Empire will not participate, shrink the line of defense, transfer the population. The three major interstellar empires in the universe, in the face of this terrifying lethality, smashing the planet, like cutting off a drop of water, can only force down their inner anger, and they dare not retaliate at all. As an ancient and powerful interstellar civilization, they know too much how deep the water in this universe is. It is true that there are a group of cold-blooded and cruel gods aloft. Wow. It was another terrifying confrontation. After this violent blow, Thanos was bombarded with one blow, and his body was scarred. Even with the Infinity Sword and Infinity Gauntlet, he still could not completely protect him. What the hell is the weapon in Martin's hand? The Star Sword. I have exhausted the entire multi-universe, and I have never heard of this weird artifact. Compared to this, I am more concerned about where this sword comes from. Infinite, can it be positioned? Symbolizing the infinity of infinite space, at the moment shook his head and said in a deep voice, "No, it's still the same as in the past. It cannot be explored, observed, or located." The various artifacts on Martin seem to appear suddenly, naturally, but it won't trigger the universe's own rejection. The emergence of every divine tool is a shortcut to burst out a powerful force. As the creation god of the universe, it stands to reason that he will feel it. But the reality is cruel. As before, there is no way to know. Is it really forged by him? In a way that we can't detect. At present, this is indeed the case. Only this can explain it. In addition, I really don't believe there is any way to make the artifacts of the different universe work perfectly on the universe ruled by our universe gods. Death said solemnly. Numerous ancient beings fell silent, each looking at the fierce battlefield with complex expressions, and the coercion erupting in the center of the battlefield made them, the cosmic gods, feel a panic. Too powerful. Thanos is strong and understandable. As long as he is alive, the destiny will lean towards him, plus the infinite sword in his hand. But that Martin. Cronus looked complicated. As the cosmic entity, the god of time, he can feel Martin's strength is steadily rising, and the part of the power it represents is also rising sharply. It seems that he is not far from where he is. Will he see the rise of a new cosmic god with his own eyes? Isn't this rising too fast? Rumble. Another wave broke out that made some weak universe gods uneasy, annihilating countless planets. Martin is suppressing Thanos. The star sword that dazzled the gods, every time it was swiped, the blue light burst out, as if it had soaked the rules of the universe into a beautiful azure blue. With a loud noise that rang through the universe, the two long swords frequently collided, shattering countless matter and time and space. Boom. The muscles behind Martin's divine armor had already bulged at this moment, bursting into the blue veins. In the explosion of terror power, he once again blasted Thanos, and quickly chased after him. There was a loud noise, accompanied by fragments of the long sword that broke apart. Thanos was blasted back one after another, a lot of blood spewed out of his mouth, and his internal organs began to crack, but the infinite power quickly recovered his injury. Unfortunately, Martin's injury was much faster than the recovery speed. Boom. In the final blow, Martin smashed Thanos into a planet with a sword, and in a bang, the entire planet began to explode. You lose. Martin stood in the starry sky with an indifferent face, staring coldly at the destruction of a planet. An embarrassed figure rushed out from the aftermath of the planet's explosion, with a gray head and a muddy face. The scars were densely covered all over, and bones were deeply visible. No, it's impossible. My infinite sword is the most powerful artifact in this universe, how could it be you? Thanos gasped hard, his eyes were bloodshot, but he didn't care about his injuries at all, and hurriedly lowered his head to look at his infinite sword. He was stunned. Cracks have appeared on this infinite long sword, as if it would shatter at any time. What's more terrifying is that the part that was violently hacked by Martin just now was clearly cracked. Are you looking for this? Martin spread his hand slowly. The fragments of the infinite sword, at the moment, strong energy is surging, lying quietly in Martin's palm. Blood was constantly spouting from Thanos' mouth. What was even more frightening was that Martin had cut off at the moment at the position below his waist, and was wiped out into countless atoms in the sword light of the opponent. Life is passing, and once again, Thanos personally felt his own death, and what he felt more deeply than before was the collapse of the destiny of the universe. Faintly, he seemed to understand something. It feels bad. Thanos gave a bitter smile. You didn't need to feel this bad feeling again. You could sleep forever, but you just want to be a dog to death. Martin walked step by step and came to the dying Thanos, expressionless. At the moment, he raised his hand with a sword and chopped off Thanos' hands, split his fingers one by one, and cut off the rest. The sword was taken. At this time, the infinite sword completely fell into Martin's hands. It was really a good trophy, rare in the world. In the comics, this sword shattered into countless pieces. Any one piece made Silver Shadow Man blacken become a dark 25 surfer every second, and it can make Galactus, who is hungry and crazy, completely filling his stomach. The infinite power contained in the infinite sword is an important puzzle of the entire infinite power. Definitely, the infinite power involved in the 6 ordinary gems. The 3 infinite gems, which are unique in all multi-universe, are on the contrary. It was simply not something that the infinite long sword could touch. Now, this sword is owned by Martin and Cybertron. Quiet to die, Thanos. Your life is a glorious tragedy. You died twice without even having a tombstone. Martin quietly looked at the universe overlord in front of him. No, it was more like a dog who had lost hope. You have noticed it. The destiny that returned to me from you is collapsing. This is their purpose. They only need to strip the destiny from you. Thanos spouted a mouthful of blood, carrying a lot of internal organ fragments, and whispered in the last moment of his life. It was Martin's strange look that responded to him. You are mistaken again, Thanos. I have never taken the destiny thing in my heart. The position I have now is seized by a constant aggression, using countless enemies. The blood and the corpse were paved. What does it have to do with the destiny? That kind of boring trick is also worthy of juxtaposition with my great achievements? Martin sneered, and immediately took a deep look at Thanos. The star sword moved and slashed at Thanos' head. The blue light flashed. A head rose into the sky. In the universe, Thanos, a descendant of the Eternal Titans, finally dropped his curtain, although the consequences of this another killing were extremely serious, and he was shattered by the repeated pull of destiny. But Martin didn't care at all. Waves of powerful divine power surged over, a pair of gazes brewing all kinds of treacherous emotions, at the moment across the distant time and space, at the moment all fell on Martin, with a deep jealousy and greed. Snapped. Martin stepped on the body of Thanos, held his head up, sneered at the starlight, and laughed softly. Is this your goal? Or, is it your ultimate goal of death? Will be infinitely long? The sword was given to Thanos. It would be best if he could kill me in one fell swoop. If not, at least he could trigger my destiny, and then you will cut off the destiny. A good plan, and also a ridiculous plan. When will the dignified cosmic gods use this stupid way to treat a newly emerging existence? Martin sneered again and again, seeming to inadvertently lift the star sword, and easily carried it on his shoulders. The terrifying power that was enough to cut the universe radiated out one after another, hitting precisely where the prying eyes were. Before long, a series of frightened and angry voices sounded. Martin, you are so rude. You have no destiny, and you are no longer the darling of this universe. You, level godfather, dare to offend me waiting for the gods. You are looking for death. One after another, there were gloomy or unpleasant voices. But Martin just stood tall in the cosmic starry sky with a sneer on his face, surrounded by the remains of stars in the sky, like endless mountains traversing in the universe. So, as long as you become a cosmic god, you can stand on the same level as you idiots. Will this make you high-level idiots shut up? Martin simply inserted the star sword directly into the chest of the dead Thanos, and looked up at the sky. The sneer on his face, at the moment, was even more sarcasm. What really disturbs these gods is that in Martin, there is a specification that breaks boundaries is rising. This lower boundary is strongly torn apart by the surging force, and it seems that there is a feeling of a powerful existence being gestated in the entire universe. No, don't you? It's impossible. How could you be promoted to the universe god so quickly? How long has it taken from your awakening ability to standing side by side with me? Don't forget, this guy has time gem. Maybe he has spent countless years in the corner of time. All the gods were watching, even those who had no hatred with Martin at all, and there were no negative opinions. At the moment, they were also moved and looked at this scene in astonishment. The fire source in Martin's body, at this moment, all kinds of power are madly gushing out, and Martin's power that has reached the limit of level Godfather, suddenly pushes upward again. Boom boom boom. Vaguely, the loud noise that only resounds at the rule level is constantly roaring. This is heralding the birth of the existence of level single universe, an existence that can stand side by side with the entire universe with its own power. Snapped. In the next second, accompanied by an explosion, Martin has crossed the barriers like the sky, and the whole body is surging with a powerful force that surpasses the previous. The life level ushered in a huge amount of leap, and he has truly become a god. Level single universe. Keep abreast of the ancient gods. Huh. Martin drew up the star sword on the side and used the level of the level single universe to control the star sword. It was enough to explode the power of this sword. At the moment, the gods of the universe were shaken by the horrible swordlight, and they were faintly aware of it. It's a terrible sense of crisis. This guy Martin already possesses the ability of God Slaughter. For a while, all beings were silent. After a long time. Boring. An impatient voice sounded. The huge amounts of Planet Devourer finally couldn't stand this stupid confrontation. He was hungry, and he was completely disinterested in who killed whom or who became a god. He just wants to eat, and specialize in eating all kinds of life planets. Someone like Martin Thanos. Go to hell, it's boring. Soon, many high-level existences in the entire universe knew, and a brand new cosmic god emerged. It is the Lord of Cybertron, the murderous Martin. Really, death has abolished so much effort. I don't hesitate to pull out the hapless Thanos and use it again. At best, he can only tear off Martin's destiny. Didn't he expect Martin to no longer need his destiny? Many beings were talking in low voices, whispering, those gazes overlooking the universe, at the moment with a little weirdness. It's ironic. What are you going to do? Eternal quietly looked at the figure beside him. Death was silent for a long time, and said lightly, doing nothing. He has become a cosmic god alongside me. Although he is not an entity of this universe, he is indeed equal to me in terms of specifications. In that case. Then. That's it. You want to stop here, but obviously, Martin will not give up. He will retaliate, especially against you. Only you have the ability to revive Thanos. He knows you did it. Eternally indifferent. Death snorted, and the whole figure began to hide, obviously not wanting to speak. Eternal also fell silent for a while, turned his head, looked at Martin again, and said with emotion, really a terrifying guy, from a mortal to a noble cosmic god. All beings can feel the breath from Martin, the powerful power of the level single universe, like a heavy stone, weighs on the hearts of all beings, making them feel heavy. Brand new gods, brutal nature, what kind of changes should such Martin bring to this universe?
Dona T no. No one or God can know. Cybertron.
Martin returned with the Infinity Sword and Infinity Gauntlet. As for Thanos' corpse, he directly abandoned it in the depths of the endless universe. It was a corpse, and it was really not worth his time to waste. The inhabitants of the entire planet fell into a frenzy at this moment, looking at Martin respectfully one after another, looking at the great god in their minds. The creator has become the noble cosmic god. The whole planet is caught in a huge amount of carnival. As expected to be my master, he has become a top god in such a short time. Kratos, who was in the arena of Karen, looked up at the sky at the moment, looking at Martin's stalwart figure, with a look of excitement, so that the blood-colored lines on his body were slowly creeping. Sure enough, when the Olympus fell, he decided to surrender in pursuit of power and war, which was an extremely correct choice. After returning to the residence, the first thing Martin did was to invite Megatron. Martin inserted the broken Infinity Sword on the surface, and at the same time, he gave the golden Infinity Gauntlet to Megatron, and said lightly, I have given you these two things. In this way, you will have an infinite three-piece set. In the near future, you will be able to step into the level single universe in one fell swoop, and the gap in front of you will no longer exist. As soon as Megatron approached, the numerous jewel fragments on the surface of the body began to glow irresistibly at the moment, and the infinite swords looming on the same fractured infinitely roared each other. I see. I will definitely not let you down, and I will definitely be promoted to level single universe before the guy Optimus Prime. Megatron chuckled in a low voice, first put on the Infinity Gauntlet, and then grabbed the hilt of the sword. In an instant, gloves, gems and long swords were coherent, suddenly bursting out of the same frequency, and in their mutual contact, they all carried each other up sharply, and the momentum that pushed Megatron's whole body suddenly skyrocketed. So strong. Megatron's face was moved, and the infinite three-piece suit was matched together. Even if it was defective, it could still have this terrible effect. Megatron at this moment clearly felt that he could slaughter the gods. Very well. This is really the best thing for you. From now on, you also have your own weapons. Don't let me down. Martin had a faint smile on his face and waved his hand. He didn't need something like the infinite long sword. With the star sword in his hand, Martin had no shortage of weapons on the offensive side. Megatron bent slightly towards Martin and left with his broken sword and gloves. Only Martin himself, at the moment, after taking a deep breath, his complexion was solemn, and he came to the sink for the first time to wash his hands carefully. His unfocused eyes seemed to be carrying out a sacred mission. System, draw a lottery. Martin said solemnly. Dip. Congratulations to the host for reaching the level universe, and we will reward the god of the universe with a lucky draw. Countless light curtains flashed past, and every image was a good thing. Martin's eyes were hot. All kinds of artifacts, holy relics, and all kinds of legendary shapeshifting King Kong. He even saw the 13 apostles appear above. In the end, the pointer slowly stopped, and finally pointed to some hammer-like weapon. This is. Martin's eyes narrowed. Dip, congratulations to the host for winning one of the top 10 artifacts, the Hammer of Tianjiao. It's actually the Hammer of Tianjiao. Open the artifact. Martin shook his face, showing a look of joy. The Hammer of Tianjiao, one of the 10 artifacts of the Cybertron civilization, is a weapon used by one of the 13 apostles, Sai Tianjiao. It contains countless formulas and information, and has the ability to forge raw materials into extreme weapons. Ability. That's right. Even an ordinary person who knows nothing about forging can smash a powerful weapon on the spot by picking up the Hammer of Tianjiao and smashing it at a pile of scrap iron. The Hammer of Tianjiao is so unreasonable. As long as you smash the raw materials indiscriminately, a powerful weapon will inevitably be born. As for how strong this forged weapon can be, it depends on the limitations of raw materials.
A diaresis of this is the 4th artifact I have, and it's the auxiliary artifact I need most.
Martin smiled satisfied. The magic ball, the supreme god armor, the star sword, and the current auxiliary artifact Tianjiao's hammer, 4 different types of artifacts are in hand. At this time, just when Martin was admiring his artifact, Earth. The huge war triggered by the Red Skull resulted in a terrible disaster. Countless forces were involved. Even Atlantis and Kunlun Mountain participated in the war, and the entire planet was broken. It's a dog's brain. Can't wait any longer. Start the top secret plan. Fury took a deep breath and said solemnly. What? But, we haven't studied that thing thoroughly until now, so we started it. Joe. Follow the order, Phil Coulson. The Red Skull is the one who made this world ruined and desperate, not the symbionts. Fury looked majestic, and said solemnly, when necessary, I don't hesitate to awaken that terrifying monster directly, and I want to end the evil of Red Skull. Phil Coulson's eyelids jumped wildly, his mouth opened, and finally he sighed deeply and chose to execute the command. As the SHIELD high-level agent, Phil Coulson knows the weirdness and incomprehensibility of that guy too well. After all, that is, the Dragon of Symbiont. It was discovered by accident in Scandinavia in Northern Europe by SHIELD decades ago. This is a black dragon frozen by endless ice, and it is also the source of all symbiosis on Earth. The last time we touched this guy was during the Vietnam War. Phil Coulson walked in the dark basement of Scandinavia, and waves of cold came, causing Phil Coulson to wrap his body tightly. The deeper you go, the more you can feel the terrible chill. The process of dealing with this black dragon is not so wonderful, it is because this dragon is so weird. Sir, this is an extremely risky decision. Although the black symbiote extracted from this dragon can make ordinary people have Superman-like strength in an instant, it is simply uncontrollable. The tragic consequences of the Vietnam War. Until now we have not found a solution. A scientific researcher is closely behind Phil Coulson, with fine beads of sweat on his forehead. He spent half of his life in this secret base, and spent half of his life studying the Black Dragon, knowing the danger too well. This is the chief's order. We only need to follow it. Moreover, we will arrange some fighters with firm will to carry the symbiote. There will be no big problems in a short time. Phil Coulson looked solemn and kept looking down at the information in his hand, repeatedly deliberating and thinking.
During the Vietnam War, SHIELD had already begun to make super soldiers, and the discovery of the Black Dragon made them ecstatic. Although they didn't figure out what the origin of this dragon came from, and why it was frozen in Northern Europe, it's nothing important.
The point is that part of the black matter they extracted from this dragon possesses the ability to possess and greatly strengthen the body. Super speed, super strength, super defense, super self-healing. And the possessed soldier can skillfully throw out black matter to fly over the walls, making him the perfect super soldier. Considering the huge size of the black dragon, the energy is constantly producing these mysterious black matter that resembles life. It is a treasure of wholesale super soldiers. This black substance, which is suspected of being alive, was named a symbiote by them. Throughout the Vietnam War battlefield, the symbiote soldiers showed a terrifying war ability. Everyone thinks this is the glorious beginning, but they don't know that this is the gate of hell. Phil Coulson looked at the virtual screen in front of him with solemn expression. The picture was extremely blurry. It was a scene of out-of-control symbiont soldiers slaughtering others wildly. The symbiote soldiers have all lost control, becoming brainless, violent, bloodthirsty, disorderly, alive lunatics. Everything is like a nightmare. So, even now, half a century later, you haven't figured out the reason for their loss of control? Just frozen these soldiers for decades? Phil Coulson's face is ugly. Yes, sir, we don't know the principle at all. The researchers looked guilty. We speculate that the symbiote is originally something between life and non-life, similar to a virus, and it contains a peculiar effect that directly distorts human genes and spirit. Phil Coulson didn't say a word. After reaching the deepest part of the base, he took a deep breath and lifted his foot into the huge, heavily guarded basement. The first thing that came into view was a stubborn dragon tens of meters in height that was frozen in the ice, with a terrifying face roaring up to the sky, as if at war with a terrifying enemy. Go ahead. We need more powerful fighters to fight against the evil Red Skull. This world must not fall into the hands of Hydra. Phil Coulson was also shocked by the power of this dragon. After a long time, he said in a deep voice. Numerous scientific researchers immediately began to act, carefully drilling the slender instrument through the thick ice layer, and after carefully extracting a little material from the dragon, it immediately retracted. This process was repeated continuously, and the black masses, the substances, were put in different transparent containers by them. Phil Coulson noticed that some of the black matter gradually started to wriggle after being free from the ice. No wonder this thing is similar to a virus, between living things and non-living things. Phil Coulson observed the whole process, and saw with his own eyes a large number of soldiers being possessed by these symbionts, turning them into super soldiers. Soon, a symbiote army was born, and many soldiers stood quietly in place, waiting for orders. Very well. Your task is to kill the Red Skull, whatever the cost. Phil Coulson spoke in a deep voice, and directly ordered these soldiers to start action immediately. The vigorous figure moved quickly, and the speed and physical stamina reached an exaggerated level. It's no wonder that the chief has never forgotten this dragon. If there is no sequelae of mental rage, it is indeed the most perfect biological weapon. It is countless times more reliable than Hulk's serum and X-weapon. Now, let these symbiote soldiers go to war with the Red Skull Sentinel and the controlled superhero. They will not feel distressed as much as they die, because more and more powerful symbiont soldiers will be born. Phil Coulson took a deep look at the dragon last, and then left in a hurry. But everyone did not notice that this frequent extraction process was constantly stimulating the sleeping black dragon. The moment they left, the immutable dragon's eyes opened a subtle gap, looking at everything with vicious eyes. In the faint, there is a breath of terror quietly breeding, but it disappears in an instant. It seems that this dragon is observing everything indifferently through the perspective of every symbiote soldier. Damn Asgard, frozen me here, concocted by these stupid humans. This dragon's heart was filled with extremely vicious thoughts. As the supreme god of the symbiote family, he has a terrifying record of killing a cosmic god group with one blow. He has fought fiercely with various gods in the past billions of years, and his inner humiliation is like an erupting volcano. Same brewing. The soul is trapped in the earth. The body is trapped in a symbiotic planet deep in the universe. The symbiote body currently in use is still undergoing these human experiments. My Nar, I will definitely to Guang this planet to celebrate my awakening. In the dark, he even perceived the fluctuation of the Sword of the Dead, and immediately became more angry in his heart, and began to summon this artifact that he had built by himself. Cybertron. Well, the Sword of the Necromancer is restless, and is going to shuttle in the direction of the Earth. Martin looked at Optimus Prime standing in front of him with a look of surprise. Was the ruthless character of the god of symbiote awakened so early? This sword, I remember it was taken from Asgard.
Optimus Prime said in a deep voice. At the moment, Optimus Prime's mechanical palm exploded with a terrifying force capable of squeezing a planet, and he was holding a strange long sword that exuded death and tyranny.
In front of Optimus Prime of level Godfather, the aura erupting from this sword is powerful, but not enough to see. Unless, Null, the god of symbiont, stands in front of him and performs Roar Summon. This sword fell into Hela's hands. I discovered this sword by accident when I destroyed Asgard and built Cybertron on its ruins. Martin lay comfortably on the chair, glanced at the restless necromancer sword casually, and spoke lightly. There was a little deep thought in his eyes. The sword of the undead, in terms of sword weapons, it is also the best artifact in Marvel, forged by the god of symbiosis, Nar. Be careful. Optimus Prime, the owner of this sword, is a ruthless character. A few billion years ago, he killed a cosmic god group with a single sword. Martin urged. Nar awakened so early, but fortunately, anyway, it was just a poor creature whose soul and body were forced to separate. With Martin's current level single universe's powerful strength, it was enough to slaughter Nar. However, what interests Martin even more is the symbiote planet. There are endless symbiotes on it. If it can be captured and controlled, it would be a good blessing to the low-level soldiers of Cybertron, lest it be because the strength was too weak and was quickly killed on the battlefield. So, do you want to let go of the Sword of the Dead? Optimus Prime whispered. No, you don't need to let it go. Nar will take the initiative. At that time, find a way to kill him and occupy the symbiote planet. Martin smiled faintly. Earth. The horrible war called World War III has completely spread across the world. All countries and organizations have been involved in this unprecedented war, and everyone is fighting with red eyes and blood. In order to face the army of Red Skull, all the ancient powers simply exhausted their cards, and powerful existences exuding ancient aura appeared one after another, appearing in front of the world. Kunlun Mountains. A huge amounts of Shenlong swiftly shuttled, bursting out a powerful gas from its mouth, covering a large amount of Sentinel in an instant. Shou Lao. These robots have super self-healing ability, which contains the ability of the guy named Logan. It's hard to kill. Duke Lei was bathed in endless thunder. This is the chi that he has cultivated for hundreds of years, accumulated and transformed by hard life. It is not a real thunder, but it is more terrifying than thunder. Boom boom boom. With one punch, Lei Gong knocked a metallized sentinel into the air, and even cursed in his mouth. He was beaten and beaten by this, and ability robots, which were all kinds of and switched at will, were annoying enough. These ghosts are not too threatening to us, they are just a little troublesome, but for others, they are a nightmare. The Jade Emperor also roared again and again, almost as strong as Thunderlord, turning into hurricanes, blasting countless robots and Hydra soldiers. In the ocean, numerous whirlpools appeared. Accompanied by a terrifying tsunami that rose to the sky and fell, a famous undersea man rushed out of the sea, and the army of Atlantis finally began to appear in front of the world, confronting the army of Red Skull. Aquaman Namor is naked, showing his strong muscles, with powerful magic powers surging. Holding the Aquaman trident, he controls the world's oceans, setting off waves and constantly drawing enemies into the depths of the sea. Aurora, be sober. Don't be controlled by the Red Skull anymore. Namor was bathed in endless seawater and torrential rain under lightning and thunder. There were countless waves surging around him. Opposite him was Storm Aurora, whose mind had been controlled by the Red Skull. One person controls the ocean and the other controls the weather. The two have been fighting for a long time. Namor refused to kill, because Aurora is his girlfriend. Yes, Aurora of X-Men is a couple with Aquaman Namor. Damn Red Skull. Charles is also an idiot, so he was so easily poached his brain by Red Skull and harmed the whole world. Seeing that there was no response at all, and the lover who wanted to kill himself, Namor was even more angry. The whole world is caught in huge amounts of turmoil. Various weird biological weapons are raging around the world, and Hydra's crazy human experiment products are thrown out and slaughtered frantically. It's crazy. As if the end of the world. But soon, the decline of the war changed, because S.H.I.E.L.D. suddenly dropped a large number of symbiote soldiers to various key battlefields. These fierce and almost perfect undead fighters are active all over the world, attacking the Red Skull army forcefully, so that the United Party finally breathed a sigh of relief. These things are the top secret plan of S.H.I.E.L.D. I wanted to get some symbiote to study the special battlesuit, but you guys refused to give it to me. Tony returned to the base with a tired face. His armor was already in tatters, and his energy was exhausted. At the moment, he complained about Natasha Romanoff. Natasha Romanoff closed her eyes to rest, and didn't bother to respond to him. Tony stared at the symbiote attached to the soldier, his eyes gradually becoming hot.
This is the perfect material in his mind. It is active, contains no metal and mechanical structure, which is equivalent to immunity to Magneto's magnetic control and Martin's activation, and can maintain the host's vitality at a super high level, as long as it is not bombarded into slag. Even the internal organs are gone, it won't take long to recover.
Well, apart from the huge consumption of all kinds of meat, which is dozens of times the appetite of ordinary people, this kind of small defect is nothing at all. Only, how long will these guys lose control? Tony asked in a low voice. Natasha Romanoff's eyelids trembled, but he did not open his eyes. After a moment of silence, he whispered, "This is the strangest place, everything is normal. You know, these symbiosis have formed a powerful distortion to the human spirit and genes. Strength, it stands to reason that the group of soldiers who were the first to enter the battlefield should have gone crazy long ago, but the results of repeated inspections turned out to be all normal."
Everything is normal, eh? Tony furrowed his brows, and his powerful wisdom made him instantly realize that there was a problem. It didn't make sense that the soldiers from decades ago ended up miserably, but now the soldiers are all normal.
Or, the symbiote, as some scientists have guessed, there is wisdom in the faint. As time went by, the war on the Earth became more and more fierce, and there were wars and ruins everywhere. Red Skull has always been serious about conquering the world. These symbiote soldiers are too difficult and weird. Red Skull frowned at the captured symbiote soldier in front of him. After cruel experiments, it was confirmed that the symbiote is something like flames and fear. Noise. His steps to rule the world were blocked by these ghosts, but when he used his spiritual power to control these symbiote soldiers, something strange happened. In the dark, an unknown and terrifying gaze forcibly cut off his mind control, as if behind these symbiosis, there is a terrifying existence watching the progress of the situation indifferently, and it will violently rise at any time. There really is a problem. S.H.I.E.L.D. is also panicked, and dare to put these serious ills on the battlefield in batches. They will regret it. Red Skull sneered again and again. What is standing behind the symbiote? The ancient god. Sorry. Red Skull doesn't care about this. After being trapped by Soul Gem for more than 70 years, he has obtained endless information, and his understanding of various gods far exceeds that of ordinary people. Even the great multi-universe god, he glanced from a distance, and Sithorn's horror was deeply reflected in his heart. The guy behind the symbiote, no matter how stalwart, is it possible that he is stronger than so many cosmic gods? Fearing the head and tail, piercing the sky is also a heavenly father. Come here, burn this symbiote to death, Red Skull said indifferently. At this time, the squirming symbiote suddenly stopped moving, and a vague voice came out. Schmidt, I can help you rule this planet. All the Hydra soldiers took action and drew their guns at the symbiote immediately, just in case. Red Skull's face was always indifferent, and he waved his hand, and immediately there was a flame spurting out, burning the symbiote completely. Sir, shall we not negotiate with the guy who controls the symbiote? Mrs. Viper whispered. No, what I want is to rule the world, and then rebuild it according to my will, not destroy the world. Red Skull left a word indifferently, turned around and left here. Madam Viper thoughtfully, it didn't take long. A terrifying roar suddenly resounded throughout the earth. In Scandinavia in northern Europe, in that underground base, many scientific researchers and soldiers stared dumbfounded at the black dragon that had suddenly awakened, with deep fear on their faces. The endless ice layer definitely shattered, and the black dragon violently shattered ice. The terrifying coercion exuded made everyone present feel the fear from their hearts. No, those symbiote soldiers. A scientific researcher yelled, and in the next second, a symbiote soldier rushed over and stretched out a mouth on the spot, biting off the researcher's head in one bite. In this base, all the symbiote soldiers got out of control, became extremely violent, and began to slaughter everyone frantically. The black dragon glanced even more. The ancient divine words uttered from his mouth, pieces of black matter fell from his body, turned into symbiosis, and quickly rushed towards a human being who was fleeing or rebelling.
Humanitia A. The Black Dragon, no, or Nar, at the moment looked at these Earth humans indifferently, in a very bad mood.
Awful. He just possessed his soul on this symbiote dragon, intending to conquer the Earth, but was attacked by Asgard and was defeated tragically. Even primitive species like humans can point fingers at me. Nar was in a bad mood, and a series of mighty powers erupted, destroying the base in an instant, and then directly passed through the ground and flew in the sky. The soul power that broke out alone overwhelmed the entire Earth. 1,000 years ago, my invasion of this planet was stopped by Asgard. Now, no one can stop me anymore. Nar let out a creepy laugh, and through the symbiote army, he learned the news of Asgard's demise. In an instant, all the symbiote legions all over the world went out of control. They ran away and began to slaughter all living creatures indiscriminately. At the same time, the source of the constantly black matter fell off the dragon and turned into symbionts, rushing towards more people or animals. Nar began to invade this planet frantically. Soon, countless cities fell and were slaughtered by endless symbiotes. Even if the army used flames and noise in batches, it was difficult to stop the terrifying but all-pervasive symbiote army. This is the horror of Nar, and it is also the reason why he arbitrarily attached to a symbiote dragon, rushed to the World Tree and threatened to rule the Earth, one of the 3 realms of Midgard. One man becomes an army. Nar's soul is attached to dragon, looking down all this indifferently. Suddenly, he raised his head slightly, and sent countless army of symbiotes to the moon, and he wanted to spread the symbiotes throughout the solar system. On the moon, a tall figure wearing black armor was looking up at the symbiotes who roared, expressionless. The leader of the alien race, the King Black Bat, the king of Level Godfather, silently watched the army coming to the moon, slowly opened his mouth, and uttered a word. Die. In an instant, the terrifying sound wave burst out, and only a word was spoken. The terrifying sound wave was transmitted in an instant, shaking the countless symbionts in space and howling and even dying on the spot. A random sound obliterated tens of thousands of symbiosis, and solved the formidable enemy that countless superhero couldn't solve. Don't ask why sound waves can propagate in a vacuum. This is the ability of the Black Bat King. One syllable saved the moon. The Black Bat King looked at the Earth, hesitated for a moment, and finally did not act, just sheltering the moon. Back then, when the Inhumans were on Earth, they were not less persecuted, otherwise they would not have migrated to the moon. That guy actually holds the power of sound waves? Nar suddenly sneered in a low voice and glanced at the moon. If he had a complete period, he would be able to stab him to death with just one hand, like the Black Bat King who barely stepped into the Father. But not now. He controls the symbiote dragon, and his strength to break through the sky is a weak level Godfather, and he is completely defeated by the guy in front of him who uses sound waves as a weapon. Forget it. Focus on the Earth first, and turn the whole planet into a brand new symbiotic planet. Nar looked at everything indifferently, and looked at the people and animals wailing and screaming during the war with a cruel smile. His favorite thing is to conquer and kill. In the past billions of years, he has fought fierce battles with various gods, and has won many battles. The whole Earth is wailing. Sooner or later, I will kill all the gods and pull this world into the abyss in my body. No one can stop me. I am the supreme god of this universe. Nar looked at the sky full of stars and laughed terribly. Voice. At this time, a cold voice suddenly came. I'm afraid you won't have a chance in your life. The stalwart figure wearing the supreme god armor, at the moment tore a space tunnel directly reached the solar system.